Hello everybody and welcome to an energised episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You may notice the different music, you may have clocked on to the Wenger boys in the opening 10 seconds, and if you were around last night on Twitter for the Eagles matchup, then who can blame? I mean, I had to make a change, right, for the brand, because last night, the Outside Insider brand changed forever. Gone, I'd say gone. I mean, the car analogies are still going to be there, but we have embarked down a road of Captain Cravon and the Wenger boys. Boom, 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 boom. I want you in my... I don't know how many booms there are in that title. But the Eagles came off of a monumental upset. Arguably the upset of the season. Beating the Rams last night in LA with a backup quarterback and a defense ravaged by injury. It was a stunning matchup. I won a fair amount of money because I bet the Eagles on the money line like an absolute insanity move. But just what a night that was. I genuinely have not had that much fun covering an Eagles game in forever. And I think a lot of it is because it was so light-hearted. I was making a lot of jokes and, you know, making an image of Captain Cravon with his hat on wasn't something I'd originally planned going into this game. But it was just crazy. And to see you guys really enjoying the content as well, it was just fun. Like, I was genuinely sat there beaming the entire night. So if you're part of that, then thank you. If you're not part of this podcast yet, though, this is where we need your help. So if you're not already subscribed, there are 3 ways to do so. We are on Spotify now, which some of you guys requested. That's in the description below, as is Apple Podcasts. Click on any of those and you'll get the show instantly delivered to your device for free without you having to lift a finger. And sometimes I may even deliver it by hand and read you a little love poem as well. Because it's Christmas, we've all seen Love Actually, and I'm feeling like Rick from The Walking... What's his name? Andrew Lincoln. I'll just do that, but with the Outside Insider podcast. So if you're down for that, hit subscribe. If you're on YouTube, we would love for you to hit that big red button because that's the one where we really want to grow this channel. We'd love to get 5,000 subscribers by Christmas. It's a push. We've got a week left, but we could do it. We need your help. You, right there, listening to this, sat on a train or in your car. Yes, you, with your hat on, hit subscribe or I'm going to get sassy, and we don't want that right now. But we're going to get straight into things, and just what a night it was, and I really don't know where you start with it. Because it doesn't matter where you look on that field, there was always something positive. Whether it was the whole Nick Foles and the offense exploding, whether it was Avonte Maddox balling out like a Pro Bowler, whether it was Captain Cravon, whether it was Cameron Johnston and his iron leg, or whether it was just the fact that this team rallied together against all odds as double-digit underdogs to beat the Rams. Like, there was so much good to take from it, but there's one thing that stands out to me. And that is, I really think that we have been downplaying the importance of Alshon Jeffery in this offense. Now, if you remember when Alshon Jeffery was brought in, he was done so with the intent to increase the red zone optionality, to increase third down percentage, and he did both of those during last season. After posting a 900-yard year, though, Alshon Jeffery hasn't been anywhere near as dominant as he once was. And a lot of people are I mean, there was a take earlier, and I'm not going to name the guy because, you know, we don't do that here. I'm not going to call guys out. I'm not looking for smoke. But I like to put takes in their place when they're just wrong, because there's just no place for it, is there, really? In fact, now screw it. We're going to call the guy out because it's just a bad take. And the art of the take is a tricky one to master. And if you can't do it, you do end up looking a little bit silly. So the man I'm talking about, you may or may not know, is Andrew Porter. Now, I've got a lot of respect for Andrew, senior editor at 94 WIP, or do you say WIP? What does WIP stand for? Like West in Philadelphia? Wentz in Philadelphia? Wadio in Philadelphia? It's Wadio in Philadelphia. Okay, he works for Sports Wadio 94 in Philadelphia. And he put a take out earlier today. And it reads as this. Philadelphia wants Alshon Jeffery to be an elite receiver so bad, but he's not. Every time he has a good game, he's back. Reality, he's having his 4th straight mediocre season. Okay, let's just talk about this for a second, because Andrew seems to have got lost on a tangent. His 4th straight mediocre season, let's be brutally honest here, is that last season he had 9 touchdowns, which was his second highest in his career, 789 yards, 57 receptions, I'd say that's a pretty good year, considering that the whole point of this Eagles offense is that you don't need stars, right? That was the whole selling point, was that this Eagles offense was almost like Golden State, where if Steph Curry's not performing, you've got Kevin Durant. If Kevin Durant can't get going, you've got a big bruising Draymond Green to punch it up the gut. And if neither of those can find the angle, well, you've got the little underrated shooter on the outside in Klay Thompson. This was never meant to be about one man carrying the team. It's not an Antonio Brown or a DeAndre Hopkins or a man looking for glorified stat sheets or a Russell Westbrook padding for rebounds. This is a receiver that does what he needs to lift this offense when targeted. So that's the first mistake. It's not the Eagles want him to be. As if, imagine positioning the Eagles don't want him to be an elite receiver. Imagine paying him that much money and going, actually, Alshon, just be an alright receiver. Be an average receiver. We don't want you to be elite. We want you to be average. Like, just bang average. No one says that. Of course they want him to be elite. They want everyone to be elite. That's how football works, Andrew. So, on to the second point, piggybacking off of that, is that for some reason his production has been down this year. But even there, he's on track to beat what he recorded last year. He's already on 700 yards. He's already got 5 touchdowns. And with 3 games remaining, I'd like to assume he's going to get more than 80 yards across those 3. Now, is that mediocre? I would argue absolutely not. Because the problem is, as we've discussed on last week's show, and the time before, and the time before, and the time before, that this is the thing with Carson Wentz, where I really believe that his injuries have hampered him. And you look at the way Nick Foles is able to toss it up to his receivers and let them make plays. Whether Wentz either is lacking the arm strength, whether he feels locked into going in the middle. The one thing I observed in the film room last week, of course, was that Wentz doesn't move outside the pocket very much. And he feels like a statue. His footwork is rigid. He doesn't move off his spot, which is fine. But when he's going through his reads, that lower body stays the same, which means his upper body's rotating, his bottom half isn't. He's having to overexert. That may well be where the stress fracture has come from. Again, not a doctor, that was just my take on it. So, if you've got someone that is literally marginalised into looking down the middle of the field, and you have got a tight end that has now become the 4th tight end in NFL history to have a 100 reception season, you're kind of going to go to him, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, okay, if you go into McDonald's and you've got a voucher for a share box of 20 chicken nuggets, you're not going to look at a Big Mac and go, I can get that for $10. Or I could just use this free voucher. Because 20 chicken nuggets, that's a lot of them. I'm a big chicken nugget fan. I even got given garlic dip the other day. It was amazing. You're just not. And this is the thing where people are confused about. Yes, Wentz was force-feeding it, as I genuinely believe. Half of it was security blanket. Half of it was just because of the injury really hampering him, kind of being unable to get through those reads. But we did learn something new last night. I'm going to stop abusing Andrew Porter now, who's not going to listen to this podcast because he's too busy working for 94 Wadio Whip Wadio. The thing is, the way that Alshon Jeffery played last night was so reminiscent of a number 1 wide receiver that it does remind me of his first game back against the Tennessee Titans. 105 yards, big touchdown reception, had a 31-yard catch in that game as well. Caught 8 of 9 targets. But ever since then, he kind of dwindled a little bit. Then the Golden Tate trade happened and his numbers really, really fell off. Because they were trying to work out how to get Golden Tate on the field. It wasn't quite working. But the thing is, Alshon's been there the whole time. While the Eagles have desperately been searching for something, desperately trying to find this identity, trying to move the ball around, Alshon's just been stood there, gaining separation, getting open, waving his arms around, occasionally going on his phone, checking Facebook while he's, that open. And the ball's not going his way. And it's sort of like, again, we will go back to the Fieldsy type analogies because that's how we all relate to, right? We are all emotional in 2018. This is the year of the emotional fan, I think. That if you come out of a relationship or something, or vice versa, and you go, no, I need to get back on the saddle, here we go, for instance. And you're looking around, you're desperately trying to find the one thing that was, that was there before, and you can't. Because that's always going to be under the radar, just waiting for you, like, hey lol, you up? I'm here. I'm still here. Everything's okay. And that's always going to be the case. And Alshon Jeffery is exactly that for this Eagles team. I mean, to come out and post 160 yards, catch every pass thrown his way. And it wasn't just the way he was catching them, it was the actual instances. It was the big third downs. It was when the Eagles needed a spark. Jeffery has been incredible. When targeted, when given an opportunity to make a play. And that's what he's always been. And the Eagles have always known that in the 2 years he's been there. Wentz has known it. Foles has known it. And as much as this team has tried to downplay and go, no, it's not what we need. We need to go Golden Tate. We need to go different. We need to be single. We need to be doing whatever. Maybe I think I'm a lesbian. Don't edit that clip out. There's no need. Alshon's always going to be there. And eventually, when you go back through your reads and you realise, oh, Alshon was open the whole time. And he can get me 50 yards. And he is a number one receiver. And he does have a ridiculous catch radius. And he does sometimes slip over in the tunnel. On that note, can we just maybe make sure that someone who's not on the Eagles medical staff looks him over for that? I mean, there was a video that came out of Alshon slipping over in the tunnel after the game. Got a bit excited, don't blame him. But if we could get someone that's just not a member of that medical staff, might be helpful, because I don't really think they're going to be the best people to... They might say he's got a concussion after that, when he's actually just hurt his ankle. Not taking shots, just being honest. But we're going to move on though. I think Alshon Jeffery, again, clinically underrated. I think we've underestimated really how important he is to this offense. And you saw how much it opened up with him as well. I mean, for instance, Nick Foles only missed 7 passes all night. 8 receivers caught a pass. And the Eagles had over 270 yards worth of receiving. Alshon Jeffery opens up this offense when he is targeted the most. That's what a number one receiver should do. He got 8 targets, Tate got 5, Ertz still got 7, he only caught 3. They really worked to shut down Zach Ertz. But that's exactly what you want from a number one receiver, because if Jeffery can get open, if Jeffery's drawing attention, that's when everything opens up underneath, and that's exactly what we saw. All it took is a little bit of confidence, a little bit of trust, and Foles to sling up a prayer. I don't know how he completed that 50-yard pass. That was incredible. But Alshon Jeffery is always going to be that first one, that one you kind of go back to and go, yeah, we you know what the score is. You know, he's not going to go out and then just start sleeping around. He's not going to go out and maybe cheat or hurt. He's that guy. He's Alshon Jeffery. You know, he does what he says on the tin. And that, I think, is going to be absolutely pivotal for the Eagles moving forward. And if I remember rightly, we had this same debate last year as well, didn't we? Towards the end of the season, where, if we look back, if I'm not mistaken, Jeffery didn't have a 100-yard game all year. And that was a monumental thing going into the postseason. I mean, his final 4 games were against the Rams. He had 50 yards. He had the 49 yards against the Giants. No reception against the Raiders. And 8 yards against the Cowboys. And then he goes out. 61 yards against the Falcons. 2 touchdown game against the Vikings. And that game against the Patriots. He's always going to come up big when you need him most. That's what Alshon Jeffery does. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well, guys. Is it just Nick Foles that is opening up this new Alshon Jeffery connection? Or is it just the fact that maybe Carson Wentz wasn't in a position to best utilise him, and that's why the Eagles went and got Golden Tate? If they knew he was struggling and he can't get outside the pocket, he can't really get the most out of those outside weapons without drawing them in, it kind of made sense to get another slot guy, didn't it? Like an Aguilar and a Tate and a Matthews. Is that not the best thing? That's the way I'm viewing it. Maybe this is a little bit more on Wentz and the injury than it is on Foles being simply brilliant and going out and balling and, you know, causing sports talk chaos for the next week. But again, if you are new, guys, make sure you're slapping that subscribe button, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, or whether it's here on YouTube. But something interesting happened last night, and it may be my new favourite thing of all time. And we're going to go back and have a look at that right now. So if you follow me on Twitter, again, not going to shamelessly promote it, but at Liam Jenkins 21, and you were scrolling through and reading my coverage, you'll realise that as someone that deeply analyses the secondary, that is a big cornerback guy. Again, I made a whole guide last year on NFL draft cornerbacks. Like, it was a free guide. It had I think it was over 70 cornerbacks evaluated. Avonte Maddox was one of them. I'm a big defensive back guy. I love everything about the position, trying to understand it, and, you know, trying to, I guess, separate good cornerbacks from bad cornerbacks. So last night, I got a little bit of an emotional attachment to Cre'Von LeBlanc because he started playing very well. And somehow he went out. I think he had a head injury he was evaluated for. And the Eagles tweeted that Cre'Von LeBlanc was back in the game. I got very excited about this, and in all capitals tweeted, "Captain Cre'Von is back." And that became a thing. And I didn't realise at the time, but then he started making plays. The Rams went to complete a pass. I think it may have been Robert Woods caught a pass and got some converted it for a first down. And my response was, how dare you abuse Captain Cre'Von like that? That's not very on brand of you, and I would urge you to stop this very instant. And then the next play, Cre'Von LeBlanc breaks up a huge pass. And my response was, Captain Cre'Von won't stand for your tomfoolery, Mr. McVay. You've just been Cre'Von'd. And then it became a bigger thing, and I made an image of Cre'Von LeBlanc wearing a pirate hat on a boat. I think I took it a bit far then, but that became a thing. And then, so I thought that would be the end of it. You know, it's my new crush, it's on brand, it's Cre'Von LeBlanc. And then I got an interesting tweet. And believe it or not, it was actually from his mum. Or mom, or mother, however you want to say it, right? So, Cre'Von LeBlanc's mother had been reading what I was saying. And I genuinely can't believe this is amazing. This still kind of blows my mind a little bit. And she quote tweeted my video, like my big soppy 5 a.m. speech, which I always do after a primetime game, to thank you for sharing it with me, because we'll get onto that later. We'll get a bit soppy. But she put, Mama LeBlanc signing in with great big thanks for the love and support you're showing my son Cre'Von LeBlanc. #strap. I was like, wow, okay, that's crazy. And she followed me, and I was like, oh my god, I've got Mama LeBlanc on my side. And then Captain Cre'Von himself, the Eagles MVP, the best cornerback of all time, Cre'Von LeBlanc, followed me. Now, I'm a bit worried at this point, because as amazing as that was, my cover photo on Twitter is him in a pirate hat on a boat. Now, of course, I shot my shot. I slid into the DMs, and I saw straight away if we could get an interview. Now, he's not yet read the message, but believe me, if there is a way for me to get the former Chicago Bears cornerback on this podcast, then I absolutely will. But that blew my mind. Like, I was just having fun last night. A lot of people are taking it very seriously. Just to chill out, have a laugh, make some jokes, keep it lighthearted, and find the beauty in the small things. Like, I'm always championing underdogs. I think Cre'Von LeBlanc has had a massive impact in the last 3 weeks, and I was going to do an article in it anyway. But just taking it a bit further and putting some personality into it. And this is kind of going to link back to the soppy speech, but I've really worked hard, I think, the last few months to try and do that. Because I've been doing this now for 4 years. This will be my 5th year starting next year. And I think that during that time, you do the same articles every day, or the same structure every day. It becomes routine. And that's totally fine. Like, I love what I do with all of my heart. But you do become this mould of a writer almost, or as a podcaster, or a film room guy. And over time, like, especially these last few months, I just wanted to put myself into it, because I know I'm British, I know I'm different, I know that stands out, and for so long I've tried to fight that and be like, I just want to be accepted as a writer or as a media member. But now I realise that's what sets me apart. And if I can take that humour and that sarcasm and that lightheartedness and the fun and infuse that with my knowledge and passion and all the rest of it, then you guys get a much funnier podcast. I think we can all come to agree. And the live tweeting in games becomes a lot more fun, and so do the recaps and stuff. And just last night, as I said, was the most fun I've ever had covering an Eagles game. It was hilarious. I loved every second of it. And you were all brilliant, and it was great just seeing how many of you interacted with me, so thank you so much. I genuinely love every single one of you. Whether you hate the show, whether you love it, whether you've never listened, whether you always listen, whether you just read stuff or don't watch, whatever it is, it's just amazing to be a part of this and to know that I'm able to put my personality out there. Like, that's cool. It really does mean a lot. And even Mama LeBlanc is on Team Liam Jenkins right now, and that's a pretty nice thing to say. So that was awesome. But we're going to get back into, before we get to the biggest moment of the show, the moment you're all waiting for, which is, of course, Thank You Next. We've got to talk about a couple different things. And one is the decision, obviously, to keep rolling with Nick Foles. And that's been the big talk today. So in the aftermath, after Nick Foles went out and somehow made this Eagles offense look not just capable, but actually fun, he's been named the starter against Houston. And there are some people out there going, oh no, quarterback controversy, whatever are we going to do? Oh no, oh, Nick Foles. And it's like, just relax, calm down. That's absolutely the right call. I mean, let's be brutally honest here. If you've got a car analogies are back for the brand. This has been the most brand-worthy podcast. We've got a car analogy. We've had a soppy speech. I'm slapping my pillow violently with passion about this brand. And we've got Captain Crave on. But if you've got a car and you send it for an MOT, which is like your big motor test to make sure it, can run on the road if you're in America and don't have that here. And that car then comes back and it's faulty and it's got no brakes and no suspension. And you're like, yeah, we can fix it. It's going to take a few months, but you can have your car back in the meantime. And you've got to get to work every day. You're not going to take that car to work, are you? You're just not, because it might limp into work, but you might also crash halfway. And we don't want a phone call to injury lawyers for you, because the airbags come out, smacked your head, and you've got a bleeding neck, Like, you just don't want it. I mean, I was in a car crash once. I don't know where that came from. Oh, God, I was on this is just a little story. I was on a National Express, which is a coach, essentially, like a coach service. And I remember I was just sat sideways across two chairs because I'm that rebel, not had a seatbelt on, and I saw a car go alongside us on the motorway. What do you call it? The freeway? On the freeway, and it just hit the mud and swerved back in and hit the coach. And like I was just holding on to that little safety handle at the top, and I was okay. Like I wasn't hurt or anything. I got a free coach journey out of it, but we had to wait for a new coach to pick us up and go home. And I was very cold. It was in the middle of the night. I was freezing. And it was like 3 people on this coach, that was it, and the driver. So we had to pull over, wait, and then wait like 2 hours for this new coach. But he's not going to drive that damaged, beat-up coach all the way back for like a 5-hour trip. Because he knows that it's probably going to crash, and it's just unsafe, right? That's common sense. So you wait for the replacement coach, which may be a bit older, bit more experienced, maybe it's done more miles on the day, and it takes you home. I don't see how that's bad. So anyone that's saying, oh, well, they should put Wentz in as soon as he can play, as soon as he says he's good, no. Because Wentz is that kind of guy where he's like, when you can say to a girl, is everything okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm fine. It's not fine. That's Carson Wentz. I think that's been Carson Wentz all year, and I think we're starting to see that now. Like, it's you can see it. He wants to get out there and play. He's a competitor. And I think if the Eagles somehow win the Super Bowl with Wentz sidelined, it would be absolutely heartbreaking. But Jamie Apperdy, who I've actually got a lot of respect for, she works for Whoop VTV and 6ABC as an anchor. I'm just reading her Twitter bio, I'm not going to lie. But I do have a lot of respect. I know she works with like the 6ABC guys and she's really good at what she does. But she put out last night, I'm going to try my best American accent here. Okay, totally forgive me here. Does Foles throw a prettier ball than Wentz, or should I stop? My response is, does my 4x4 drive better over mountain terrain than a supercar with 2 punctures and no suspension, or should I stop? I think that shut her up, to be honest, didn't it? I think that was quite a burn. Like, do you know, it makes sense, and I know there are the purists out there that want to see Wentz get out and make the playoffs, but the simple fact is, he's very banged up, and you've got a banged up version of that coach that almost killed me, that really didn't kill me, it just sucked a bit, not gonna lie. Or you've got an old version of my Nissan shitbox that we always talk about, that my mum's car that struggles to get up a hill. If you could just take public transport while that gets fixed, you're going to do it because you know it's going to get you to work safely. You know it runs, let's be honest, a little bit simpler. And sure, you've got to put up with the old people sneezing and coughing and getting their germs everywhere, but you get to work okay. And it may not be as flashy or as cool, but it does the job. And Doug Peterson is absolutely right. Let's be honest, the Eagles were held scoreless in the first quarter for 10 of 13 of their games this season. They get a field goal on their first drive with a quarterback that hasn't played since week 2. I'd say it's an improvement. I mean, baby steps. I understand that's kind of like saying, well, I want to be able to run. It's like me on a treadmill. I mean, that's a perfect example. So I've started going to the gym. And by starting going to the gym, I mean I've done it about 3 times. And when I go on the treadmill, my heart rate is very, very high. Like, it's about 190 to 200. And the last time I went on it, it was 186. And I was amazed at that. I was well happy. It was like all of this stuff I'd worked on for 3 gym sessions. I was like, wow, there's a result there. That's cool. That's this Eagles offense. You wouldn't brag about it to your friends, unlike my 38.9-inch vertical. Just gonna put that out there. Anyone listening wants a tall cornerback, hit me up. But it's progress. It's a step forward. And for an offense that was that dysfunctional, that couldn't hit the ground running, that couldn't find balance, how is putting 30 points up against the Rams not an improvement? Let's go back and look at their last few games. 7 points against the Saints. They beat the Giants with 25, beat the Redskins with 28, 23 with the Cowboys, and then up to 30 with the Rams. And what's even more astounding is that they ran the ball 30 times and passed it 31. That is the perfect offensive balance, and why that wasn't brought out, I will never know. Like, why that hasn't been a thing all year actually blows my mind. You're now doing it with Wendell Smallwood, who's carrying 10 times for 48 yards and 2 scores. But hey, you know, I'm just the messenger, don't shoot me. But that does bring us very neatly onto my final point before our penultimate feature of the show, which is that I wrote an article. This is my humble brag for the day. Just strap yourselves in, guys. A few days ago, you may have read it, may not have, that basically said, if the Eagles are going to beat the Rams, they need to do what the Saints did to them. And I mentioned this on the last podcast. If you were listening, I did 3 episodes just for you. You filthy listeners. You bloody requested it, and I did it. So if you didn't listen to all 3, we're going to have problems now. Hit subscribe and make up for it. Leave a 5-star review. What's that playing in the background? Oh, ESPN annoys me. I better not get penalised for that. There we go. Get it turned off. But I said that the Saints should come out, or Eagles should come out and perform, like I said, as they did. Or as the Saints did to them. So the Saints in that game came out with the mentality of taking away the run and putting the game on the shoulders of a quarterback that had some silly losing record when he threw between 316 and 364 yards. I dread to think between 315. But the whole premise was that Wentz, when the game is on his shoulders, when there isn't a supporting run game, can't get it done yet. That he's not a Drew Brees, that he's not a Matt Ryan, he's not a Matt Stafford, he's not a guy that can win you a game in the fourth quarter like Andrew Luck. Brilliant. Whether you agree with the context of that statistic or not, the Saints won 48-7, Wentz looked diabolical, thank you, next. The Eagles in that game were coming up against Todd Gurley, who is having a fantastic season, no matter which way you look at it, right? I mean, he's already on 1,200 yards, which is insane. I mean, the only thing that is more stunning than that is how far back his hairline is. I mean, that is quite far. Oh, I can't believe I've just said that on a podcast. That was literally just a stray thought, I think. But Gurley's having an incredible season. Let's be honest, if you go back and look at the last few games that Todd Gurley has really been dominant in. 132 yards against the Lions, 55 Kansas City, 120 Seahawks. But even more worrying is that he's had 580 receiving yards this year. So he's really become a true kind of dual threat back. But they needed to eliminate him. So if they could do that, Jared Goff was vulnerable. Because in 4 games this season, which I believe if I'm not mistaken, and my math isn't terrible, okay, they didn't do it. So in 4 games this season, he's completed under 54% of his passes. And as you know, when you've got names like Drew Brees slinging it out at God knows what accuracy ratings we're at now, that's not very good. In fact, I hate to be that guy, but in his last 3 games, Goff's thrown 7 interceptions and 1 touchdown. Sean McVay's puppet's having a boo-boo. But he is. That's the thing. And if Goff is asked to put the game on his shoulders, like the Saints asked him to do, he's vulnerable. That he isn't an Andrew Luck, just like Carson Wentz. Young quarterback hasn't been exposed to that situation very often, where he hasn't had, because he's gone into this league with Todd Gurley under him, right? Not literally, guys. Calm it, family show. Because he's been with Todd Gurley the whole time, he's had that balance. He's had that reliance on screens and on power rushes. He's had those strong receiving calls. I mean, even Cooper Kupp before his injury was exquisite, if you excuse my finest British compliment there. So, you take Jared Goff, you understand the fact that he's not accurate, that he, again, has completed under 54% of his passes 4 times in a row, and if you can eliminate the run and force him to throw, you're in for a real game here. And then, when Goff is asked to throw, you can't be taking checkdowns because they won't move the chains because the Rams are behind. And he's got to go deep, and this is where the Jim Schwartz defense works, because when they're playing off coverage, the receivers have to run at you, which means the corners keep the play in front of them, they don't get the first down, and Goff has to do something. That's where the accuracy things come in. And would you believe it? It worked! So if you are a college team coordinator, if you are a high school coach looking for your next British offensive assistant, please hit me up. My email address is phillysportsnetwork@gmail.com. I would love to come over for an interview, share my knowledge. No, I'm totally kidding. I mean, that'd be an amazing opportunity, but no, totally joking. But what a game plan that was. And it was funny that I said that. I kind of was trying to connect dots and see if the Eagles would actually do it, but they really did. And the pass rush was great on limited personnel. They did a fantastic job of forcing Goff to throw 54 times, and they ran it 18. That is some classic Doug Peterson numbers. They forced the Rams offense to lose their direction because they can't take those shots. They can't roll on play action. They can't rely on those things that were working so frequently. And McVay lost it. Goff lost it. And Jim Schwartz coached his best game of the year, without a shadow of a doubt. So if you were previously a Jim Schwartz hater, now you're a Jim Schwartz potato, because that man coached the hell out of a game on Sunday night to keep the Eagles' playoff hopes alive. And now it is time for the best bit of the show. My favourite part of every Outside Insider podcast is when I take your questions and answer them on the show. And of course, the name for such a feature is Thank You Next. And again, if you want to submit your questions, guys, there is another show this week. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21. We're going to start it. Thank You Next at 20MUFC08 asks, is Wentz a slightly better version than Sam Bradford? Great individual stats, but average record and wins. Foles, on the other hand, puts up both. Should we trade Wentz and keep Foles? Oh, where do we start with this? Firstly, do not talk trash about my man Sam Bradford, okay? I love his little bonkai. It's the thing we relate to most. But no, I don't think yet. Maybe in 2 years, if Wentz is still battling injury, you may be able to get away with that. But as of right now, that is a scintillating hot take. My fingers are burning just thinking about it. And I think that it's not so much a team win and loss ratio with Carson Wentz, because there are so many different factors going into it. You look at that rookie season and the state of the offense, you look at last year and how amazing he was, and then the difference this year and how many injuries he had, let alone the rest of the team and everything else going on around him. Should we trade Wentz and keep Foles? We can't keep Foles, because if the Eagles do, they're literally having to sacrifice $20 million. They are not paying $20 million. Foles will be a free agent unless he restructures that deal. Carson Wentz is the future of the franchise. They just have to let him heat up. It wouldn't surprise me if they do draft a QB3, if they let Sudfeld walk or lose him to free agency for a better role. If they lose Foles as well, bring in Kevin Hogan, my ultimate QB crush, maybe draft a slightly lower guy as well. Thank you. Next, Alan Stevens. I know you're a big listener of the show, Alan. Thank you for all of your support. How much draft collateral could we get? Oh, it's a Carson Wentz question. Oh, it's going to be one of them. And what kind of deal would it keep to require Nick Foles in Philly? It's a great question. In terms of what we would get for Carson Wentz, it's going to take at least 2 or 3 first rounders. At the very least. I mean, if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm expecting nothing but 3 first rounders and, you know, another franchise player. But I don't think that's going to happen. Like, it just wouldn't be the case. Like, he's got too much of an upside. And bear in mind, what's going to hurt him at this point is he'll have 2 years left on his rookie deal. Then a team's got to pay him. So unless you are prepared to have cap space in 2020, which the Eagles still don't, and you trade him away to, let's say, the Giants, they've got to be prepared to pay him big money, and I don't think they would be. They'd rather start that fresh 5-year window. So at the minute, leverage is kind of dwindling. As for Foles, he's going to want a starting job. If he keeps playing like this, he wanted one last year, he opted to stay with the team, it wouldn't surprise me. He may pack it in and retire, but I genuinely feel like, unless the Eagles make him a starter, we may lose Nick Foles for good. Thank you. Next, Teddy Buriani asks, where is Joe Ostman? I don't know. I mean, I've not got him on Snap Map, so I can't really have a look at that for you, man. It's been a bit of a weird season for Joe Ostman, for sure. I know there was a lot of hype about him as one of the most prized undrafted free agents. I actually believe he may have been one of the highest paid, if I'm not fully mistaken. Now, he's kind of been on and off of the practice squad for a little while, if I'm not mistaken. If I kind of go back, I think that he was kind of brought on, taken off for a little bit. So whether he'll actually get some playing time, I don't know. But he's still sat there at the moment on the practice squad is where he is. So wouldn't surprise me if they bring him up, especially for week 17. As you know, you consider that you've got Josh Sweat out, you've got Derek Barnett out. If, you know, the older guys start losing traction, they may well bring him up. Thank you. Next, at Dave Woody 12, what would you actually do if Foles led the team on another Super Bowl run this year? What will you do if we win? Something outrageous. Good question. Now, last year, if you've been with us for a while, if you've been riding since the jump, you'll know that I actually dyed my hair green when the Eagles won the Super Bowl because I put a Twitter bet out which just lost. It wasn't my finest moment. So this year, I would say I'll dye my hair green again, but I'll do it permanent. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl again, I would dye my hair green or pink. I might do pink. Let me know in the comments. You can have a green hair or pink. Thing is, at the minute, right, on that note, this isn't very thank you nexty, but in terms of the whole love life equation, if we're talking about cuffing season draft boards, and I've got my whole scouting team on one prospect, and this has been months worth of scouting, and it's been back and forth, and, you know, is she going to be a first round pick? Is she going to go first overall? Do I have enough capital? It's been a year-long worth scout report. I think if my team suddenly just decided to just paint everything pink in their facility and then cut off their players, I don't think she'd be interested in signing. So I might need to think that. But maybe we'll go with the green hair. Who knows? We'll debate that, and we can have another podcast on Liam's love life in the meantime. Thank you. Next, Montgomery James. Where do I see Maddox sticking on the roster? Good question. I think it all depends on the fate of the cornerbacks this offseason, because if we look at it right now, you're going to have Jalen Mills coming back, Ronald Darby's probably gone. That's going to leave you with Rasul Douglas, who's coming back, and then Sidney Jones. So do you keep Sidney Jones in the nickel? Do you get rid of Mills and move him outside? Do you put Jones outside and move Douglas to safety, which I've been pounding the damn table for about 6 years? Or do you put Maddox in the nickel? Or the thing is that Maddox can play wherever. Ideally, I genuinely feel the plan is to have Mills and Sidney Jones outside, Maddox in the nickel, because he was drafted as a nickel corner. However, I genuinely feel at this stage that he may be better suited to playing safety just because of his tackling ability and the fact that he can actually go up and pluck a ball out of the air. He's very, very handy on cornerback blitzes, and as a safety blitz, I think he could be even more dangerous. So it wouldn't surprise me if, given the lack of safety depth, the fact that Corey Graham definitely is not coming back next year, Well, he probably will now. I don't know. It's up in the air. He kind of got coaxed out of retirement this year, let's be honest. So Corey Graham may not be coming back. The Eagles need safeties. I think Maddox may stay put. Thank you. Next, at Drake just threatened me. I hope he didn't. That would suck. But Isaiah Roomsbid. We're going to go with Drake just threatened me. I'm sorry, man. But Isaiah asks, is Cravon LeBlanc the best corner of all time? Yes, he is, and I won't hear otherwise. We're going to have a Captain Cravon shirt being printed for you. Thank you. Next, Big J asks, are you okay? Did you get enough sleep? The answer is yes to the first part, probably not to the second part, and I've got a full shift at work tomorrow as well. So that's exactly what you want. But thank you so much, guys, for asking your questions. That is the end of another Outside Insider podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've been giving it to you. And I've meant every word I've said. When I say that it humbles me to be a part of your life as much as it does that that you're a part of mine, I'm on this journey with you, and it has been such a cool ride to bring this podcast to the forefront and see it grow. Big things are coming. Thank you so much. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Enjoy the dub. Sub for a dub. That's the new saying. And from myself and the spirit of Captain Cravon, we'll see you soon.